The sun glinted off the mirrored windows of Crestmore Tower, making the high-rise look like a pillar of light against the early spring sky. On the 31st floor, inside the sleek conference room of Novatrack Solutions, the mood was anything but bright. Effective immediately, we're making a leadership transition in the commercial development division, said Marcus Denning, the newly appointed CEO. His voice buzzed through the speaker system, piped in from a live feed in their San Francisco office. 30 people sat at the long table in Boston headquarters. All eyes slowly turned to Camilla Hart, the woman seated near the center, poised, polished, and utterly still. In her place, we're welcoming a fresh perspective to the division, Marcus continued, led by the brilliant and forward-thinking Bryn Collette. A woman seated next to Marcus in the video feed leaned into frame with a dazzling smile and a slight wave. Platinum blonde, maybe late 20s, wearing a blush-colored pantsuit that looked more suited for a luxury lifestyle ad than a business meeting. Bryn had been spotted around company functions for weeks, always close to Marcus, always slightly out of place. Until now. The words echoed like gunshots, fresh perspective. Camilla didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just sat upright in her navy blazer, hands folded atop the leather-bound portfolio she'd carried to every major meeting for the last 15 years. This is how it ends, she thought. Not with a conversation. Not even a warning. Just a broadcast. A few of her team members looked at her in disbelief. Some leaned forward, mouths open, others glanced around as if trying to figure out if this was some elaborate joke. I want to personally thank Camilla for her contributions, Marcus added, almost as an afterthought. She's been a key part of Novatrack's early-stage growth. We're excited for what's next for the division. They're excited. I'm erased, Camilla noted bitterly. She stood slowly, the room frozen around her. All relevant reports for Q2 are complete, she said calmly. Client account transitions are documented in the internal CRM. I trust you'll find everything in order. Then she looked directly into the camera, meeting Marcus's gaze across thousands of miles. Good luck. And she walked out, the silence following her like a shroud. Camilla Hart was 56, a veteran in enterprise systems and global distribution strategy. When she joined Novatrack 15 years ago, it was a scrappy little outfit selling underdeveloped logistics software out of a shared warehouse space in Newton. The product was clunky, their market penetration almost non-existent, and their future uncertain. She'd changed all that. She wrote the first client pitch decks herself, trained the initial sales reps at kitchen tables, and sat through 12-hour meetings with logistics directors who didn't trust software they couldn't understand. Through sheer grit, Camilla had built the commercial development division from nothing into a $50 million a year juggernaut. And now? Replaced by a yoga influencer who posted rise and grind affirmations beneath photos of green smoothies. Back in her corner office, Camilla moved with mechanical efficiency. She pulled out boxes, packed up the framed photo of her and her original launch team in matching Novatrack hoodies. She wrapped her Salesperson of the Year crystal in bubble wrap and unplugged her dual monitors. Her assistant, Lena, stood at the door, her face pale. I don't understand, she whispered. You are the division. Camilla offered a soft smile. Not anymore. Lena crossed her arms. I already called HR. I'm submitting my resignation next week. You don't have to do that, Camilla said. I do, Lena replied. I don't work for people who treat women like placeholders. Camilla paused her packing. Then do one thing for me before you go. Anything. Make sure the contact records for Velocity Freight and Delano Global are transitioned cleanly. Their renewals are coming up in 3 weeks. Those clients need a soft landing. Lena's brows pulled together. Then her eyes widened. Wait. You think they'll stay? Camilla didn't answer. She didn't need to. What Marcus Denning didn't understand, what he would never understand, was that the real value in Novatrack's growth wasn't found in CRM metrics or quarterly spreadsheets. It was in trust. In the personal calls Camilla had taken at midnight when client systems failed. In the dinners she hosted for purchasing directors and operations heads. In the email she once rewrote word for a VP in crisis, saving a $3.5 million deal. The trust was never with Novatrack. It was with her. 3 weeks later, Camilla was sipping espresso on the balcony of her townhouse in Providence, the ocean breeze whispering through the leaves. She had just begun to consider retirement seriously, maybe an advisory role or consulting project here and there, when her phone rang. The caller ID read, Michael Jensen, Velocity Freight. She picked up. Camilla, Michael barked, his gravelly voice unmistakable. "Tell me this is a bad joke." "Good morning to you, too," she said lightly. "They replaced you with that woman." She couldn't tell me what API meant. She referred to our East Coast operations hub as the Midwest Division. Camilla bit the inside of her cheek. "Listen," Michael continued, "our renewal's up next month, and my COO wants to move. But I told him we'd wait. Just tell me, where are you going?" Camilla was silent for a breath. Then she said, "I've had a standing offer from Luminate Global. We've been talking again." Michael exhaled sharply. "If you sign, and you take clients, I want to be the first." After the call, Camilla stared at the skyline. The phone rang again. This time, it was the COO of Delano Global. Then the head of procurement at Bricks and Logistics. And just like that, the future wasn't uncertain anymore. Camilla didn't burn bridges. She relocated them. And this was just the beginning. The offices of Luminate Global were nothing like the soulless glass cube that NovaTrack had become under Marcus Denning. Situated in the heart of downtown Providence, Luminate's headquarters occupied 2 floors of a converted textile mill, a brick and beam space filled with warm lighting, actual bookshelves, and the kind of energy you didn't find in companies chasing the latest buzzword. Camilla had visited once, years ago, when Luminate was still a promising newcomer with bold ideas but few clients. She'd met their founder, Ray Holloway, at a conference roundtable about ethical growth in enterprise tech. He'd been sharp, curious, and refreshingly honest. Since then, they'd stayed in touch, LinkedIn messages here, an email or two there. Luminate had grown steadily, methodically, not with flashy IPOs or influencer campaigns, but with a solid product and quietly excellent service. So when Camilla finally returned Ray's standing offer, the reply came within an hour. "Lunch? My treat. Tomorrow?" They met at a small bistro off Main Street. Ray arrived in his usual low-key way, no blazer, sleeves rolled, and eyes that still sparkled like he was discovering the world in real time. "Camilla Hart," he said, pulling her into a warm hug. "I've been waiting a long time for this moment." "Let's not get ahead of ourselves," she said, though she was already smiling. "Fair enough," he replied, waving the host away as he led her to a quiet corner table. "But I've got a pitch, and it's not just about titles." Over roasted beet salad and grilled salmon, Ray laid it all out. Luminate was ready to scale. They had the infrastructure, the funding, and the product suite. What they didn't have: a veteran who could build the commercial strategy team from the ground up, someone who didn't just know sales, but understood how to sustain relationships. "Everyone's chasing unicorns," Ray said, pouring them both tea. "But we're building a Clydesdale. Strong, reliable, not sexy, but it gets the work done, pulls more weight, and doesn't spook easily." Camilla laughed. "You always did love metaphors." He grinned. "I also love client retention. You've had a 94% renewal rate for over a decade. Your clients follow you, not the logo." He slid a folder across the table. "Executive VP of Strategic Growth. Total autonomy. Build the department your way. And," he added, "full permission to bring any team members or clients that want to follow." Camilla opened the folder. Inside, a comp package significantly above her last salary, stock options, and a note scribbled on the first page. "You've built something extraordinary. Now let's do it again, with people who understand what that means." She closed the folder and looked up at him. "I'll need a few days," she said. Ray nodded. "Take a week. Just know, our door's open. Always has been." Camilla didn't take a week. She signed on Friday. That weekend, she called Valerie. "I need someone I trust. Director level." Valerie didn't hesitate. "Send me the offer. I'm packing already." By Monday morning, Luminate Global had its first major transplant from NovaTrack. And the calls kept coming. Delano Global. Bricks and Logistics. Even Westfield Imports, once NovaTrack's prized international account. Each call started the same way, disbelief over how the transition at NovaTrack had been handled. Each ended the same way: "If you're with Luminate, we're interested." Camilla didn't make promises. She didn't pitch aggressively. She simply said, "Let's talk," and followed through the way she always had, with integrity, preparation, and an unshakable understanding of what her clients needed before they said it out loud. By week 3, Luminate's client acquisition numbers had spiked. Ray walked into Camilla's new office, still half unpacked, a bouquet of sunflowers on the windowsill. Just got word, he said, holding up his phone. Velocity Freight signed a letter of intent. That's $5 million in annual revenue, secured in less than a month. Camilla raised an eyebrow. That fast? Your name carries weight, Ray said. You're like the whisper on everyone's lips. Camilla's gone rogue. She's building something again. I'm not rogue, she said. I'm precise. They both laughed. What Camilla didn't expect was how energized she felt. She had assumed leaving NovaTrack would leave a hole, a kind of grief for the thing she'd built. But what she felt instead was freedom. No more endless boardroom battles for budget allocations. No more watching mediocre men get promoted for swagger. No more tiptoeing around egos and appeasing personalities who didn't understand the ground-level work. At Luminate, her ideas were heard. Her strategies were trusted. And her time wasn't wasted. She spent her days mapping out a new org structure, onboarding her team, building client care protocols from scratch. Valerie was thriving as Director of Client Success, and Camilla was already eyeing Daria and Leo from her old team as the next hires. NovaTrack, meanwhile, was in quiet chaos. She heard from former colleagues, Jenna flailing in meetings. Clients ghosting account reps. Internal memos about missed revenue targets. And then, the inevitable. An email from Marcus Denning. Subject, let's talk. She deleted it without reading. Instead, she focused on momentum. One morning, she got a call from the COO of Axon Freight, a company she'd pursued years ago but never landed. Word is, you're building something better at Luminate, he said. We've been considering moving off NovaTrack for months. They've gotten complacent. We're open to a conversation. Camilla leaned back in her chair, smiling. Tell me what you're missing, she said. It wasn't about revenge. Not anymore. It was about creating something that worked. That lasted. She wasn't just rebuilding her career. She was reshaping the industry. By the time fall leaves began blanketing the sidewalks of Providence, Camilla's team at Luminate Global had doubled in size. The pace was relentless, but it was purposeful. Every new client brought a challenge, a set of unique problems to solve, and Camilla thrived in the puzzle. Valerie now led a team of 6 and had reorganized the client onboarding process into something so seamless even their largest enterprise accounts commented on the difference. Luminate wasn't just growing. It was maturing, with a backbone made of grit, strategy, and the kind of loyalty that couldn't be bought with flashy titles. The real turning point, however, came not from a signature on a contract, but from a photo. A blurry, dimly lit photo, shared by a contact in her old network. It showed Jenna, NovaTrack's new visionary, sitting alone in the reception area of Exacor Logistics. Her face glowed blue from her phone screen, apparently oblivious to the waiting room television, which played a local business segment. The segment? A spotlight on Luminate's new expansion, with Camilla featured as the architect behind the company's skyrocketing commercial success. Camilla didn't gloat. Not publicly. But she did forward the segment to Ray with a 2-word message: it begins. That same week, NovaTrack's quarterly report was released. It was brutal. Revenue was down 43%. Client churn had spiked 28%. The board had scheduled an emergency session, and speculation flooded the professional sphere. Anonymous Glassdoor reviews painted a picture of chaos. Senior sales staff were resigning. And across industry forums, questions began circulating. Where's Camilla Hart? Who's leading commercial development now? What happened to their top clients? Camilla watched it unfold like a controlled burn, dangerous, but necessary. She had no interest in public humiliation. But people were starting to understand the truth. The trust had never belonged to NovaTrack. It had always belonged to her. Inside Luminate's new war room, a rebranded conference space where strategic planning happened, Camilla led her team through client integration roadmaps. We've secured Axon and Brixton, she said, pointing to the 2 pinned logos on the board. Next are the outliers, companies that haven't moved yet but have begun sniffing around. I want a soft outreach plan. We're not poaching, we're offering shelter. Daria, newly hired as Director of Strategic Partnerships, nodded. I had lunch with Westfield's compliance officer. Their tech lead's ready to jump ship. He said, and I quote, if I see one more Instagram post from Jenna about hustle culture, I might set our data center on fire. There was a ripple of laughter. Camilla smiled faintly but didn't dwell. Stay focused, she said. We don't mock. We move. That was the motto now. No arrogance. No retaliation. Just results. A week later, Gregory Nash, Luminate's CFO, entered Camilla's office with a satisfied expression. Just got off a call with Westfield, he said. Contract signed. 3-year commitment. Premium tier. Camilla raised an eyebrow. And Jenna? Apparently showed up for the pitch wearing a cropped blazer and gave a talk about digitally aligning human intuition. Camilla winced. What does that even mean? Exactly. They shared a rare moment of quiet laughter. Then Nash grew serious. You're aware the board at NovaTrack has started looking for a new CEO? I heard, Camilla said. I'm not concerned. Well, it's more than rumors now. Marcus has been strongly encouraged to resign. Shareholders are restless. I'm sure they are, Camilla replied evenly. But let's keep our eyes on our own lane. I like that, Nash said. Speaking of lanes, Meridian just invited us to co-host a logistics innovation panel. They want you to keynote. Camilla blinked. Meridian was once a direct competitor, now, they were asking her to lead conversations at industry events. Funny how quickly the tides shifted when you didn't just talk a good game, you delivered. I'll do it, she said. The keynote became a defining moment. Standing in front of 500 industry leaders, Camilla spoke plainly. Growth isn't about speed. It's about direction. You can double your revenue, but if you're doubling disorganization or ego, all you're doing is building a bigger mess. At Luminate, we believe trust is currency. You can't borrow it. You have to earn it. Every day. Every client. Every conversation. She received a standing ovation. Afterward, executives lined up to speak with her. Not pitch. Not sell. Just talk. Seek insight. Listen. Because she wasn't just a name anymore. She was a symbol of something rare in corporate spaces. Integrity. A few days after the keynote, a discreet message arrived in Camilla's inbox. Subject, confidential inquiry. From, Executive Search, Clover and Maynard Group. Ms. Hart. We are currently conducting a high-level executive search on behalf of a major enterprise technology firm undergoing restructuring. Your name was repeatedly brought up in our consultations. We'd like to discuss a potential opportunity that would place you in a CEO position overseeing a multi-division global platform. Camilla stopped reading. She didn't need to know who. She already knew. NovaTrack. She closed the message without replying. That Friday, Ray knocked on her office door and stepped in holding a small box. For you, he said. Inside was a sleek, modern desk nameplate. Camilla Hart. Chief Revenue Officer, Luminate Global. She hadn't even realized the promotion had been finalized. Gregory says you've pushed us past $100 million in projected revenue for next year, Ray said. It wasn't a question if this would happen. Just when. Camilla touched the edges of the plaque, her chest tight with emotion she didn't expect. I thought I was done building things, she murmured. You weren't done, Ray said gently. You just hadn't been given the right tools in a long time. She looked up at him. Thank you. For trusting me. He smiled. You've made that easy. That night, as she sat on her balcony, glass of red wine in hand, Camilla scrolled through her contacts. Her phone buzzed with a message. Valerie. Remember that meeting where Marcus announced your departure? You should have seen everyone's face today when the new Luminate numbers came out. They're calling it the Great Client Migration. Camilla didn't reply right away. Instead, she looked out across the city's skyline and breathed in the cool air. She had built something again, something lasting, something stronger. And the world had noticed. Winter descended on Providence with a sharp chill, but inside Luminate Global, the energy was electric. Camilla stood before a whiteboard layered with timelines, onboarding grids, and retention metrics. Her signature was on over a dozen new contracts, including the largest deal in company history. Word of her leadership had reached every corner of the enterprise logistics world, and the phrase Camilla Hart effect had begun circulating in executive circles, not coined by her team, but by analysts watching NovaTrack's implosion and Luminate's meteoric rise. In just 4 months, Camilla had brought in $35 million in transferred contracts from her former company. And that wasn't counting the ripple effect, clients who hadn't even worked with her but wanted what she was building. And yet, none of it made her smug. What she felt was clarity. That clarity deepened when she opened an email on a snowy Tuesday morning. Subject, request for a meeting. From, Marcus Denning. She stared at the screen for a long minute. Beneath the subject line. Camilla, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from. But I hope you'll consider meeting me. Please. She almost deleted it. Almost. But then curiosity got the better of her. She replied with a date, time, and location: Grayson and Company Cafe, a quiet spot she frequented, neutral ground. She didn't tell anyone on her team. This wasn't a strategy meeting. It was closure. Marcus was already there when she arrived, seated by the window, clasping a coffee cup like it might shatter in his hands. His once polished appearance had frayed, shirt wrinkled, 5 o'clock shadow creeping up his jaw, and a look in his eyes she hadn't seen before: uncertainty. "Camilla," he said, standing quickly. "Thanks for coming." She sat across from him, not bothering to smile. "What can I do for you?" she asked plainly. Marcus exhaled, his voice low and tired. "I made a mistake." Camilla sipped her tea. "You'll have to be more specific." His lips curved in something like a wince. "When I replaced you, I thought I was bringing in a new era, modern, dynamic leadership. Bryn sold me on this idea that younger energy and digital charisma were what our clients wanted." Camilla said nothing. She wanted to hear it all. "She had me fooled. I admit that. But the fallout. It's been catastrophic. We lost 60% of our top-tier accounts. Investors are panicked. The board forced Bryn out last month, and now they've asked me to step down too." Camilla raised an eyebrow. "So this isn't a courtesy call. It's a salvage operation." Marcus leaned forward, his voice urgent. "I want you to come back. As CEO. Not just sales. I mean the whole company. The board would approve it. You'd have complete control. Name your price." Camilla stared at him for a long, silent moment. Then she shook her head, slowly. "I'm not interested." He looked stunned. "But the company needs you." "No," she said evenly. "The company needed me. You chose to ignore that. You replaced years of expertise and relationship capital with a hashtag strategy and Instagram filters. You didn't just miscalculate. You erased everything we built." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Camilla, this is your legacy. You built NovaTrack." "No," she said firmly. "I am my legacy. The people. The strategies. The results. That legacy is alive and well at Luminate now." He sagged back in his seat. "Just think about it," he whispered. "I already did," she replied, rising. "Good luck, Marcus." She left him sitting there, staring out the window at nothing. Back at Luminate, the day continued at its usual pace: meetings, updates, numbers, momentum. But late that afternoon, Ray appeared at her office door holding a bottle of champagne. "What's the occasion?" she asked, smiling. He set the bottle down with a small flourish. "Western Global just signed a 5-year deal. With performance incentives. That pushes us past the $100 million revenue mark, 6 months ahead of schedule." Camilla blinked. "Already?" Ray nodded. "And the board wants to elevate you officially to president and CRO. The paperwork's on its way. They're also discussing a seat for you on the executive board." She didn't speak right away. After a long pause, she said, "Do you know what Marcus offered me today?" Ray leaned against the wall. "Something desperate, I assume." "CEO. Of NovaTrack." He let out a low whistle. "They must really be in freefall." "They are," she said. "But I didn't even flinch." Ray lifted the bottle. "Then let's drink to choosing forward." The next morning, Camilla walked into the office to find her team had decorated the main hallway with balloons and a large banner. 100, a milestone, powered by people, not egos. She laughed out loud. Valerie appeared with 2 coffees in hand. "Figured you'd need fuel for your big day." Camilla took the coffee gratefully. "You know, this feels a little familiar." "How so?" "Like when we first hit our stride back at NovaTrack. But this time. It's different. No looking over my shoulder. No fighting for permission." Valerie nodded. "Because this time, they knew your worth before the first win." 2 days later, the industry's largest trade publication released its annual rankings. Luminate Global was named Most Promising Mid-Market Enterprise Platform. And beneath the accolade, a full-page feature. The Quiet Power of Camilla Hart, Building Empires, Not Egos. It included client testimonials, excerpts from her keynote, and quotes from former NovaTrack staff who had followed her to Luminate. One even said, "She didn't just give us jobs. She gave us purpose again." Camilla read the article in silence. Then closed the magazine and looked out over the office floor, her team, Her vision, her legacy, finally housed in the place it had always deserved to be. She didn't need revenge. She'd built something better. And it was only the beginning. Spring came early that year. Sunlight poured through the floor-to-ceiling windows of Luminate Global's new headquarters, a space twice the size of their former location, buzzing with energy. Camilla stood in the center atrium, watching as her team prepped the main hall for the upcoming client summit. New banners hung from the rafters, each bearing a different phrase. Built on trust. Growth through grit. Powered by people. A soft voice interrupted her thoughts. "Ms. Hart," said a young intern shyly, holding a clipboard. "We finalized the client seating chart. And also, someone dropped this off for you." She handed Camilla a small envelope with a familiar embossed logo. Novatrack. Camilla turned it over slowly. No return address. No signature. Just her name written in looping script. She opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "Camilla. I'm sorry for how everything happened. I should have known better. I see now what I lost, not just a leader, but the heart of what made our company matter. Wherever you are, I hope you're thriving. M." She folded the letter once and slipped it into her jacket pocket. Thriving wasn't just a hope. It was a fact. That afternoon, Camilla addressed the largest crowd Luminate had ever hosted, over 400 clients, partners, and press. The summit had turned into a full-on industry event, with people flying in from every corner of the country. As she stepped onto the stage, the crowd hushed. 3 years ago, she began, I walked away from something I built. Not because I was ready, but because someone else decided they didn't need me anymore. Murmurs passed through the room. Everyone knew who she meant. I thought the chapter was closed. But what I didn't realize at the time was that sometimes, the greatest success comes after the greatest betrayal. She paused. Because I wasn't discarded. I was unleashed. Applause erupted. She let it crest before continuing. At Luminate, we don't lead with trend chasing or surface-level promises. We lead with depth. With people. With relationships that aren't transactional, but transformational. You didn't come to us because we had the flashiest pitch. You came because someone here showed up for you. Again and again. She looked out over the crowd. She saw Valerie, Daria, Leo. She saw longtime clients. Former competitors. New believers. This company, she said, is a testament to what happens when you stop chasing noise and start listening to needs. The standing ovation didn't surprise her. But the tears in Valerie's eyes did. After the summit, she retreated briefly to her office, a quieter space decorated with framed letters from clients, awards, and candid photos of her team over the years. On her desk sat a neatly stacked folder, the quarterly performance report. She skimmed it with a practiced eye. Revenue, $124 million. Client retention, 98.7%. Employee satisfaction index, 94%. New market centered, 3. Luminate wasn't just growing. It was dominating. A knock came at the door. Ray entered holding a newspaper, his expression bemused. You might want to see this, he said, placing it on her desk. Business Weekly. Headline, former Novatrack CEO joins coaching platform after industry exit. Subheading, Strickland cites personal transformation after unprecedented company collapse. Camilla gave it a cursory glance, then slid it into her recycling tray. Ray raised an eyebrow. Not interested? She smiled. That chapter's done. You sure? Because word is they're shutting down the remaining regional offices. And apparently Jen has gone back to selling wellness ebooks. Camilla's face remained serene. I'm sure some lessons are best learned the hard way. Ray nodded. Well, for what it's worth, there's been a 40% spike in applicants from ex-Novatrack employees. All citing our culture as the reason. Shortlist the ones who know how to listen, Camilla said. The rest will have to learn the difference between buzzwords and substance. A few weeks later, Luminate was invited to keynote at the International Logistics and Innovation Expo in Berlin. Camilla took the stage again, this time not as a comeback story, but as a blueprint. She spoke not just about strategy, but about recovery, reinvention, and how leadership is proven not when everything's going well, but when you're told you're no longer needed, and you rise anyway. Afterward, a younger executive approached her, looking uncertain. I'm going through something similar, he admitted. I was replaced in a merger, without notice. I thought I was done. Camilla placed a hand on his shoulder. You're not done, she said. You're being redirected. He looked at her like she'd given him oxygen. Maybe she had. Back in Providence, Luminate's success didn't just continue, it deepened. They launched a mentorship initiative, pairing new hires with veterans. Camilla personally mentored 3 rising stars. One of them, a sharp, ambitious analyst named Bianca, reminded her so much of herself from decades ago it was almost eerie. "You know," Bianca said one afternoon, "I read your story online. The NovaTrack thing. I hope that's not rude." Camilla smiled. "Not at all." Bianca hesitated. "Was it worth it? Everything you went through?" Camilla thought for a moment, then replied, "Absolutely. Not because of how it ended, but because of where it led me." She looked out at the bustling office floor, collaboration in motion. "This," she said, "is what I was always building toward. I just didn't know it yet." A year after her dismissal from NovaTrack, Camilla received a small package in the mail. No return address. Inside was a plain black notebook and a sticky note that read, "Thank you for showing us how to rebuild, not just companies, but ourselves." Anonymous. She didn't need to know who sent it. She placed it on her shelf next to her old NovaTrack awards, not as trophies, but as reminders of what happens when you are pushed aside and choose not to shrink, but to soar.